Hello again, YouTube. My name is RJ and welcome to my workshop. Today I want to show you another little project I did just to make my life a little bit easier. This is my scrap barrel. Just scrap steel. Gets filled up with a lot of miscellaneous junk. Good way to keep the workshop cleaned up a little bit, to have a place to put all of that stuff. And it usually takes me several months to fill it up, and then I'll take it to the scrapyard, get a couple dollars. But it's more about keeping the place organized and then recycling it. You know, the few dollars that I get is not that big of a deal, but not putting this into a landfill is quite a bit better in my opinion. So I've had this drum for quite some time, probably 2 years now, and it's a used 55-gallon drum. This particular one had diesel fuel in it. I purchased it new, got some off-road diesel for tractor, used it up, and then I decided I can use that barrel for something, and a scrap bin was the first project that came into mind. So one thing I want to talk about, be careful when you're selecting used 55-gallon drums. Know what came in them. There's some pretty nasty things out there that get shipped by via 55-gallon drum. You don't want something that, you know, held methyl ethyl death in it, and then go in there and start sticking your head in it and things like that. So start with something that you know the hazards of it. This particular one, I punched a hole in the top, cut it out with some snips, let it air out for a while. I think it's all discolored. I think I used it for a burn barrel for a short bit. Got all that out, and then all I did is just took a grinder, cut-off wheel, cut the thing off, and took a flap disc to kind of smooth out the edge so it's not tearing me to shreds all the time. So that was how it lived for quite some time. When it got full, it was time to hoof the thing up onto the back of the pickup truck so you could take it into the scrapyard. And this thing gets filled up with a lot of, you can see it's pretty empty. There's some BX cable, there's banding, lots of little stuff. It's not super heavy, so you could just lift it, but that's not that convenient. So one night I was out here in the shop and I'm like, how can I make this thing better? Well, two things. One, I've got a tractor with a set of forks on it. I'm like, well, that would work out pretty well if I could pick this thing up. So I was trying to think of a skid to put under it, something like that. And the other thing is I intend to build myself a gantry crane one day for inside the shop. Got all the materials that'll be coming up one of these years. So I also wanted a plan so I could lift it from overhead as well. So started looking around, and sure enough, everything was laying around here. So first thing I did is I found some 2x3 by 11 gauge steel tubing down here. These are 23 inches long, which is whatever scrap I had. I took my forks, found out, I put them down as narrow as they went. They would go 16 inches outside to outside. Perfect. I believe the spacing on these two pieces is 17 inches. So it fits on the forks very nicely. And at first, like I said, I was thinking about just doing it as a skid. And then all of a sudden I'm routing around and hey, look, I found some 2.5-inch casters. Nothing real fancy. They came off of something that I took apart at some point in time. So probably the only new piece I put in here was a couple 1/4 bolts to hold the thing together and some welding wire. And that's all I did. Is I just took this thing, set the barrel down onto these plates and just MIG welded it on. There's a nice seam here, so there's a little bit of heft, so it's not super thin metal like the side. So it welded on just fine. And it's really, the weight bearing is on it's not a big deal. It's not a high stress weld. So that works out really well. The casters is great because if I'm working on a lathe or something and I'm making a lot of chips, I can roll this thing right over and just heave the things in. And it's never, my goal is just to have everything I can on casters in my shop. I can move it wherever I want. It's a wonderful way to do it. So that was the best, that's what I use the most. The casters are great, and being able to pick it up with the forks is wonderful because I can just pick it up, drive over to the back of the truck, set it into the back of the truck, and at my scrapyard, they just have a pile. All you do is back up to the pile, and actually this works good because I can roll the two casters into the little notch where the tailgate and the bed of the truck come together, kind of lock it in there, and just flip the thing over, fumbles off the back of the truck, empties out, throw it back in the back of the truck, and off you go. So let me give you a little bit of footage of loading it up with the fork truck, and then I'll show you a little bit more. So the other method I have to be able to pick this is via a couple of clevises and a chain, and then I can pick it up with an overhead crane. Right now I've just got it hooked up to an engine hoist, which really isn't high enough to get it up into a pickup truck, but I plan to build myself a gantry crane. I've got all the materials for it, and so one of these years I'll get that thing built up, and then I'll be able to just pick this thing, back the truck under it, set it down in the back of the truck, and take it away from there. Let me bring you in closer and show you how I did this. So if you look closely, I've drilled a 5/8 hole through the barrel and just inserted a 1/2 inch clevis so I can run my sling, my chain, whatever I've got that day. And because I was only going through a single wall section of the barrel, which is pretty thin, I just had some 1/8 inch by 2 inch band laying around. And so I just welded it on there just to give the wall thickness a little bit thinner. This barrel doesn't usually get that heavy, but I wanted a little bit extra support. Chain it up like that and off you go. So as you can see, having a couple different ways to pick the thing is kind of nice. If the tractor's being used for something else, it's down, whatever. Like I say, at some point in time when I put a gantry crane in here, I'll be doing a lot more overhead lifting and it'll work out well. But for now, the fork truck works great. Tractor with the forks on it. Actually a very versatile piece of equipment. The forks are on that thing more often than the bucket. So the other thing I forgot to mention before, this is kind of a handy little thing. I was at a neighbor's house, a buddy's house, and he had an old CB radio and antenna and everything, and he decided I needed it for some reason. I don't really know why, but brought it home. I'm like, yeah, I'll get rid of it, whatever. So brought it home, and I saw this thing, and I started looking at it, and wow, that's loud. It's a magnetic mount. And so all I did is just snipped off the coax cable, and it lives right here on the edge of this thing. I have used this for more things. It's just a really nice magnetic pickup. You know, it's not one of those big ones that sweeps all across the floor and everything, but you know, I use this all the time by my belt sander. You know, getting grinding dust, just trying to clean up the bench, just kind of dab around a little bit, wipe it off into here. Works great. Simple little thing. I didn't think much of it when I first got it, but it's been very handy. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Just again, think about, it's all about your imagination. 55-gallon drums are great. I've seen people make parts washers out of them. Like I said before, a burn barrel. This, like I say, was just a hole just to put things in to get it ready to go to the scrapyard, but with, you know, a couple dollars worth of steel, a little bit of time, and it gave me an excuse to build something, which is half the fun of having a workshop. Finding new ways to spend more time out here is always a great thing. So I hope this gives you some ideas. Think about what you can do with your spare drums and get out in the workshop and work on some cool stuff. So thanks again. Take care. See you next time.